how's it going, guys? My name is Zach with the Movie Castle, and today we're going to be taking a look at 28 Years Later, The Bone Temple. This just came out January 16th, 2026. It is the fourth film in the 28 Days Later series, and is a direct sequel to 28 Years Later. The movie was directed by Nia DeCosta, who you guys might know for the Candyman reboot or The Marvels. The movie once again stars Ralph Fiennes, Jack O'Connell, and Alfie Williams. Now, Danny Boyle, the director of 28 Days Later and the first 28 Years Later, does return in a producer capacity. However, he didn't actually direct this one. I think I heard they filmed them both back to back, and I guess that was just too much for him to do alone. However, the writer of both 28 Days and 28 Years, Alex Garland, does return to write this film, so it does feel very much like a cohesive story. We just don't get super much of Danny Boyle's digital photography kind of like aesthetic thing he was doing, but it still does fit in the overall plot. Now, this is a movie that is kind of a weird situation because I really loved 28 Years Later. It was a good story about this kid. He's leaving his home, he's realizing how much bigger and more dangerous the world is, but he also realizes there's things that he never questioned before, and maybe the world isn't as clean and nice as he thought it was. The movie ends with him going out on his own and trying to make a life for himself. The first movie was such a good character study that ended with a super random scene. A satanic cult comes out of nowhere. They're doing all sorts of martial arts and killing the zombies. They're all named Jimmy. They're dressed in brightly colored tracksuits. They have these weird blonde wigs on. And they're also obsessed with the Teletubbies. Yeah, 28 Years Later was grounded, and then you end the movie with a satanic Teletubby cult? That is weird. That is tonal whiplash, and that is probably one of the two reasons this movie's not doing super great financially. That ending scene of 28 Years Later should not have been there because you really don't get the whole Jimmy story, and it just seems weird in that little bit that we gotta see. That, and also this movie just came out way too quick. I think I heard someone say it came out 28 weeks after the last one, which, okay, 28, that's a fun motif, but you really didn't give the last movie enough time to resonate and let us build up and have anticipation. So yeah, weird end note and sequel coming out way too quick. That's not the best for this movie. However, now that I've actually seen it, I have to say it's a lot better than I thought it would be. Don't get me wrong, this movie definitely has parts that don't work, and it really is an odd duck of a movie. But it's also super experimental. While there is bad weird, there's a lot of good weird, and I love that they really did try a lot of new things. We also get those ideas that I said weren't super fleshed out from that one scene in the first movie get expanded, and we get to watch Jimmy go from this really annoying character to seeing him turn into a truly scary, unhinged individual. And yeah, it's less zombie horror and more human horror, but let me tell you, there's some hard-hitting moments here, and it all ties together into this really cool finale. So yeah, it doesn't 100% work. There are some weird moments, but the highs definitely outweigh the lows, and I would definitely recommend checking it out. Even if that ending of the first movie did leave you on a bit of shaky ground, I was uncertain as well, but let me tell you, this is a movie that did grow on me as I watched it, and after I got out of the theater, I've been thinking about it quite a bit, which is always a sign of a good movie. So yeah, check it out. I really wish this movie was doing better. and I so hope we get that final film to round out the trilogy. Fingers crossed on that one. But all that being said, what's the movie about? I'm not going to do any major spoilers, I'll focus primarily on setup, but I do want to break down a few things in order to analyze it a little better. So what's going on with this one? Well, this film is definitely a film of two different plot lines that will eventually get tied together, but we have the Jimmy story and the Ralph Fiennes story. And let's talk about Jimmy first. Jimmy is a cult leader, and he takes young Spike in, changes his name to Jimmy, of course, because everyone in the cult's Jimmy, and he goes around and he starts to terrorize people. He says that the devil is his father and that each of the cult members are a finger of his fist. And we do get some truly brutal moments. At one point he wanders into another settlement and he believes it's time for a sacrifice, and we do get a really good gut-churning scene. We really get to see how dangerous this guy is, and that's sort of the thing, is when you first see him at the end of the first movie, you don't really get to know him too much. He seems goofy, he seems wacky, but it's not until like partially through this movie that you really get to see he's not just a goofball, he's legitimately dangerous, and we get the scary scenes with him. But it's not just that he's an unhinged cult leader. I like to see his character, because even though, yeah, a lot of this is just manipulation, it turns out that he believes more of it than you think he does. He legitimately does believe that he's the son of the devil. He does believe the devil's out there, and he does believe he's doing his work, and you have to wonder how much of it is manipulation and how much of it is him being honestly sincere. And the same with the cultists. Yeah, some of them are being forced to be there, but some of them have actually started to believe it. I guess you could say the Stockholm has actually set in, because yeah, a lot of them really do believe Jimmy, and it's not just that he's an unhinged individual holding him there. A lot of them do believe in the mission. So yeah, I kind of feel like Jimmy's like Ruby Rod from The Fifth Element, because when you first see him, you're like, okay, this guy's ruining the movie, but over time you're like, okay, no, I get where they're going with him, and I think by the end of 28 years later, you start to go, oh no, this guy's actually a really interesting character. So yeah, at first I really didn't like him, but he did start to grow on me, and he grew out of this goofy British street punk persona, and you actually really got to see why he was scary. But that's just half of 28 years later too. The other half is, of course, Ralph Fiennes' character, and boy, this is a weird plot, but again, good weird. Ralph Fiennes is there, he's doing his science, and he's building his memento mori, the titular bone temple, and he starts to find that Samson, that alpha zombie from the last movie, well, he's been tranquilizing him with his morphine darts, and now Samson has started to appreciate the morphine. He's becoming a bit of an addict to it. So he's been walking up to Ralph Fiennes just trying to get tranquilized. And Ralph Fiennes finds this really interesting. It's an unexpected behavior. He's going to study it. It turns out this whole thing was built on rage. What if you take away the rage? And there is a bit there of science. There is a bit of studying. And okay, yeah, some of the elements they reveal about the zombies I'm not 100% on, but most of it does work. It is very much like George A. Romero's Day of the Dead. Very underrated movie. Check it out if you haven't seen it. But this is a really interesting character study. And honestly, you get points in this movie where Ralph Fiennes and Samson are just hanging out with each other. And boy, that is definitely a case of half of it is what am I watching, and the other half is this is pure cinema, and they kind of oddly go together. There's a scene where Ralph Fiennes is dancing to 80s music while Samson, this big giant zombie, is just staring at him stoned out of his mind. And I'm watching this scene and I'm like, this is weird, but I am 100% engaged right now. And yeah, a character study about a lonely scientist and a zombie who is somehow connecting to part of himself that he normally wouldn't be able to. It's weirdly interesting. But that being said, of course, eventually we will work to the third act, and the Jimmy plotline and the scientist plotline will crash into each other, but it is a very interesting and different way that these two intersect. I really don't want to spoil it, but when Ralph Fiennes meets Jimmy, they have a really good conversation, and it really did help me understand both characters a lot better, especially Jimmy, and I think will definitely make a rewatch totally worth it, but it leads to a really good big show that they were putting on, and honestly, a really impressive sequence. The ending of this movie is probably going to be one of the things that I think about the most when I think about the 28 Days Later franchise, and honestly, super cool moment that I don't want to spoil too much of. As far as the movie's major flaws, yeah, there were weird bumps in the road every so often, and the whole Jimmy thing, it did take me a while to come around on, but I think I'll be 100% on board when I do a rewatch. But the really big thing that gets me is how they handled Spike, Alfie Williams' character. The first movie was a good in-depth character study of him. He was firmly the main character, and in this one he's kind of off to the side. You do get a bit of, oh, I'm trapped in this evil cult and I hope I don't have to do anything I don't want to do and I hope I can escape, but it's not like a really tight captivity thriller. He's a witness and he is in danger at times, but he's not really the main character anymore. Ralph Fiennes and Jimmy really are the two main characters of this movie, and poor Spike has to take a backseat. And I really wish the Jimmy plot was told more through his perspective, and I really wish it was more of a how do I get myself out of this situation type movie. And it is that way in a little bit of it, but I do wish he was still the main character, and the fact is he's not. Another thing that I think will be rectified in the third movie. However, maybe that is part of the point. The first movie being, oh, I see the world as different, I'm questioning it, I'm gonna strike out on my own and be a free thinker, and then what happens immediately afterwards, he gets snatched up by someone who's telling him how to think. And boy, do we see this a lot in real life. Maybe Jimmy is a metaphor for a social media algorithm or an overzealous college professor. Poor kid doesn't actually get to think for himself and be free anymore, but I don't know. Who knows? As I said, this movie does have a few faults. Losing the main character and then a few goofy moments here and there, but overall I did like its experimentality. I like the way it tried something new, I like the hard-hitting moments, and overall, again, building to a really fun ending. So yeah, I can definitely recommend it, and I hope that this does develop a bit of a cult following. I really hope the trilogy doesn't go uncompleted. The movie does set up at the end where the third movie would be going, and I'm super excited for this setup. It looks really good. So here's hoping they do get to make it. So yeah, definitely check this one out. It is a little weird, but just give it a moment and see if you can't get into it, because I think if you do, you'll have a lot of fun with this one. So yeah, check it out. All that being said though, to everyone who's watched so far, thank you for watching. To everyone who's liked and subscribed, thank you. You really are helping the channel out. I'll leave a relevant playlist down here if you guys want to see more videos kind of like this. Feel free to click right here and see more. Anyway, have a good day. I'll see you guys again very soon. Playlist here. Have a good day now.